Alright, now imagine being a certain project. This project got teased back in 2019, and it got very well received because it is one of the most beloved horror manga ever made, way back in 1998. So it's a classic, and that would be Uzumaki. Now, Uzumaki is by Junji Ito. Junji Ito is probably the most prolific horror manga author in Japan. Possibly one of the biggest, and most influential horror authors just in general in the entire world. And all his works really show that. And many things take inspirations from it. They're all just beloved classics. Tomie, Gyo, Uzumaki, all his little short stories that he publishes all the time. Like, he is a very active author, so of course there have been adaptations of his works in the past. There was an OVA for Tomie, there was a movie for Gyo, which I did watch that one years ago, and it was okay. It wasn't really a good adaptation. Some of the short stories got adapted, but there was one common thing with all these adaptations. They were always subpar. It's the same thing with Berserk. Berserk has gotten a couple of adaptations, movies, a TV show, 2 shows, but they either don't get completed or they just are very subpar, horrible products that get memed on to this day. We don't need to talk about it. So what about Junji Ito? So it's pretty much the same case. Junji Ito's short horror stories from time to time get picked up for a quick little adaptation, whether, again, like I said, through an OVA, a movie, or a miniseries or something. But usually these end up falling flat because they just don't. It's like as if these studios don't capture the magic that Junji Ito portrays in his horrific drawings, in his mind-twisting, bone-chilling, freak of nature art style. But Uzumaki, like I said, was teased back in 2019, and it looked very promising. It was actually going to, for once, adapt one of his stories in black and white, because with these adaptations usually are in color and they don't look that good. It kind of ironically, it kind of washes out the style, and it just kind of makes it look dumbed down, even though color is supposed to add, more detail. It's supposed to make it more lively, but instead it kind of took away life from the mangas. But this one looks like it is going to be as faithful as possible. Now, what's the issue? Okay, so the issue comes from the constant delays. There were many delays. 2020, 2021 came by, still nothing. Then 2022, they had to delay it even further. There was even like a whole announcement post about it and everything, which I commented on, and I even got a response back from an official, and it made me feel very reassured how wrong I was about that. Anyway, so back on track. So finally, we hear that it is going to be a 2024 anime. It seems like this 4-episode miniseries, yes, it is only 4 episodes, was finally gonna be coming out in 2024. I am super excited. Now, why am I so excited about it? Well, I love Junji Ito. I've only read a couple of his stories, but Uzumaki was one of my first dives into a horror anime manga. Now there have been some other times that some other series at the time, like Parasite and Drifting Classroom, you know, those sorts of more older series that I had also read / watched at the time. But something about Uzumaki, with as short as it was, really spoke to me in many ways. And I even made a review of it back in the day, 7 years ago. I made a video about it, and please, I was just like, as I was reading, I was like, kind of looking around, and I see like this spiral, and I kind of get like a chill on my back. I'm like, oh God, okay. Please just don't watch it. It's horrible. But pretty much in that video, I expressed just how much I absolutely adored everything about those 3 volumes. I was just completely mesmerized. That's, again, one of my first anime manga horror experiences. Like, it was, like, it changed me. Like, it spoke to me. I don't know how else to say it, but like, it was just that profound on me. So, of course, I was a huge fan of Uzumaki, and I was super excited for, you know, for this adaptation. And the more they kept showing of it bits and pieces, the more excited I was getting, because I'm like, this is finally going to be the first production of an adaptation of Junji Ito that is going to be able to replicate the actual horror and be a proper adaptation. Oh, again, how wrong I was. All those years of hype, and the time finally came when it when it aired. Now, I should have seen this coming because, you know, it was produced alongside Adult Swim. Now, I'm not saying that that is like the sole reason why, but something was bound to happen, because there have just been a lot of mishaps when it comes to Adult Swims over the year. Adult Swim over the years, but I was still hopeful. This team looked like they truly cared about this product. And the first episode came out, and it was really good. The reception to it was very positive. They're like, "Oh, this is what we're talking about. This is not perfectly, but it's doing a very good job of communicating the manga as an anime, and it's so it captures the art style so well, with the character designs, the visuals, and the environments, the horror effects and animations flowing well with the characters and the environments. Great first episode. Then the rest came, and it was a complete downhill from there. It was just a never-ending oh goodness. Okay, so what happened? The quality of the animation just plummeted. It's like it was done by an entirely different set of people in studio. Like, this wasn't the same product. It was something completely different. All the characters looked off. There were so many instances of bad walking animations, stiff animations. Sometimes characters don't even like talk when they're supposed to. They just kind of stand there. Things moving around without being animated at all. So many instances of this. It felt like a PowerPoint presentation put together. Like, what happened here? It's truly remarkably boggling how something like this could happen. But we did eventually get an answer from someone that worked on the show, that is now a deleted post, and that certain individual's name is Jason DeMarco, one of the founders of Adult Swim and Toonami, their anime block. Specifically for this project, he was the creative director, so he had a pretty deep involvement with the project, I would imagine. So I think what he said in this post has a lot of validity. And I really feel for him when he was explaining this to a fan who was simply just asking about what had happened and such. He says, "It's fine, we knew this would happen. I can't talk about what went down, but we were screwed over and the options were A, not finish and air nothing and call it a loss. B, just finish and air episode 1 and leave it incomplete. Or C, run all 4, warts and all, out of respect for the hard work we chose C. After waiting so long, it makes sense people would be mad. Unfortunately, I can't tell them who to blame it on, but someone is definitely at fault here. And we all just had to do our best when things imploded. Maybe others would have made different choices. We did the best we could with what we had. But again, a lot of people worked very hard on the show, and I didn't think the actions of just 1 or 2 people should be the reason it never saw the light of day. Maybe that's the wrong choice. I truly don't know. But those people have a right to be annoyed and disappointed. I'm glad you are digging it." Again, I feel for DeMarco here, for the Japanese studio that had worked on this. I think it was Production IG. For William Street, Adult Swim in-house production studio that helped all the artists, animators, storyboard artists, writers, producer, everyone that was involved in this project. I could tell that they had poured their heart and soul into this. They completely showed that in the first episode. Again, it was really great. It showed the potential that this could have been if it had reflected across the rest of the episodes. So again, I couldn't imagine being one of the people involved in this project and this being the outcome. As a fan myself, I'm already very devastated, as I've stated before, but it can be real tough. I can only imagine what these people are feeling right now, seeing all the ridicule online, all the jokes, the memes, it's rampant. So, and I completely feel for everyone involved in this. Now going back to the actual anime itself, you remember how I said that it felt like it was made by a completely different person, like a different set of people, second episode and onwards? That's because it actually was. It actually was. So, it actually, in the episode 2 credits, versus comparison to the episode 1 credits, it's literally a completely set of new people. So yes, from episode 2 onwards, they kept involving different groups of people in each episode, and probably a whole different production company and everything. You could easily tell with the animation, and some of the creative choices. Now I know that DeMarco didn't want to, point at people or name names. He probably doesn't even know himself, but I saw circulating around that it possibly was their owner, the parent company Warner Bros. Discovery, and that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, as Warner Brothers has been doing a lot of screw-ups like this recently, quite a lot with a lot of these productions. When it comes to like a bunch of live action projects, cartoons have just been hitting the can, being used for tax reliefs and yada yada yada. You've probably seen it all the time. So it wouldn't surprise me that Uzumaki was yet another victim of this. But besides that, another aspect of him saying that they were screwed over was with COVID, because I think another person involved with the project had stated that COVID had affected them greatly and actually pushed production back by a whole year. So that would make sense. That would probably explain around 2020, 2021 why they couldn't release it then. And a whole year without progress is quite a lot of time. Like it that can be detrimental for a project. Like some projects would just give up entirely and just can it at that point, right? But no, they kept with it despite all the difficulties. And that's why I greatly admire that they chose to still release all the 4 episodes out of respect, to the production and the staff that worked on it. Now, another aspect is the way that it was actually made. Now, from the first episode, you could tell that, yes, it's motion capture. And motion capture and turning that into animation, it can be expensive and very time consuming. It was stated that they are doing all the motion captures of the characters, of the certain animations of grotesque stuff, having to use CG to then translate that into 2D drawings. All of that was very time consuming and expensive, so that was another big detriment to the production of this anime adaptation. And again, it's very unfortunate to hear that. Now we can finally get to the meat of the bones, and that is, now we've talked about the funky production, the way it's made, the animations, how a staff responded, all that stuff. That's what pretty much everyone's talking about. Now I'm gonna get to the meat of the bones. How is it as an adaptation? How does it adapt the material from the manga? That's what I'm gonna get into now. I think it's bad. Now, apparently, Junji Ito had commented that 4 episodes is quite shorter than the manga, but they managed to do a great job of switching things around, and that he praised the writing people, and thought that they were very creative for being able to weave that into 4 episodes. Now, I don't agree with that. Now that I've actually watched it, 4 episodes was not enough. You could tell that this pacing was really rushed. A lot of the scenes, monologues, certain horror shots were just outright cut, and a lot of them were just changed around, and the order of events was very mixed up, which threw me off as a reader of the manga. It threw me off quite a bit, because it kind of makes things not really add up. Like how they have the Shuichi's mother submitted into the hospital over her being, completely fearing spirals, and then they just kind of stop at that initial checkup, even though that's supposed to play out in its entirety up until her death. But they just stop at that initial setup, and then insert in the blood-sucking pregnant women in between that, and then afterwards conclude the thing with the mom. I don't know why they mixed up a lot of these chapters. That's what they did. They basically took chunks of chapters and kind of put them into another chapter and mixed and matched around like that, while also cutting a lot of corners, monologues that Keiki had along the way. And for example, one of the cut scenes was near the beginning, where the Shuichi's father was, the man who was obsessed with the spirals, and the one that turned himself into one inside of that weird pot. There's a scene cut where he's in an alleyway and Keiki is watching him. And she leans into what he could possibly be doing, and he is simply in silence, just staring at a shell that's in the shape of a spiral, and she just calls him weird. Now that is a good way to subtly, immerse the viewer in what this is about. You see this man just crouched over, not talking, just staring at a shell that's in the spiral shape, and it's really weird, like she says. Then there's another scene, again, near the beginning. Now, the scene where she meets her boyfriend's father at the door because she's delivering the spiral clay model that he wanted, and he said he didn't want it anymore. Before that scene, there was this entire mental breakdown that he had inside of the house because his wife had thrown away his entire collection of spirals, everything spiral in his room, and he went mad. And his wife was just telling him to wake up. You're going mad. Like, this is not normal. And he's just, and then that's whenever she walks into the room, and he was starting to proclaim that he doesn't even need that stuff anymore. He can just make spirals on his own. That's when he first declares that he can make spirals on his own, and the fact that she actually witnessed it herself in the manga instead. While in the anime, it's her boyfriend Suichi that simply explains the phenomenon to her, explaining his further obsession with spirals. So they cut a lot of these things that, I don't know, it showed more of the character. It showed more depth to the characters. It showed a little bit more of their motivation, and it showed more of their dive into insanity, an obsession with the spiral. This was the case a lot throughout this manga. There's many cases of this, and again, it's really unfortunate that it happened, because I think that the pacing of the manga works really well for how short it is. Each scene felt like it flowed perfectly with, her going day to day life in this madness. Now, another example is the part where her hair starts growing into spirals, and then another girl was getting jealous that she was getting all the attention when it's supposed to be on her. So her hair starts spiraling out as well, and they kind of have that weird hair whipping duel, and she starts walking around the streets, proclaiming that she has all the attention and that she's the greatest and whatever. But then they just leave her at that, and then much later into the anime, they finally show her in episode 3 when the typhoons start hitting the town, that she was just stuck to a pole and had dried out. But in that same chapter, all that had already happened. She was walking on the street and then attached herself to the pole while everyone was watching, and she dried out then and there, which has a greater impact. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, for cutting up sections of chapters and placing them in other parts of the manga just felt really wrong to me. It just makes the scenes feel so disconnected from each other because of all this jumbling and mixing around that they did. Now, I don't want to, judge Junji Ito's, how he how he processed the adaptation, as he was pleased with the way that they had done the rearranging of scenes and stuff. I just personally wasn't really a fan of it. The one thing I will say is that it was nice that they included a little epilogue where, instead of just ending the manga right there at the end, just with her stating that, gonna wait until the spiral starts anew and starts it all over, the curse of the spiral, and then it's just the end. Well, in the anime, instead, they have a little epilogue where it shows a brand new town had had been started on top of it, and kind of showing similar events happening everyday people's everyday activities kind of reflect the previous characters' behaviors and stuff, and that's because it's a spiral. It just continues to go around and around the same old, and I think that was a nice touch. One final positive thing I can say about the adaptation is the music. I hadn't mentioned it up to now, but the composer was Colin Stetson, and he's based in Montreal. Obviously, I did not play any of the music up until now and won't do it for the rest of the video because I don't want to get copyright or anything. But, I mean, they wouldn't really be good for video, for playing in the background of videos anyway. They're more of like atmospheric, bone-chilling tracks. You know, they're supposed to complement the scenes, the actions, the horror. And I think it's probably the best aspect of the entire adaptation. I won't lie to you. Besides the first episode, and besides it being black and white, finally one of the adaptations being how it's supposed to be properly done, you know, to fully showcase Junji Ito's art style and its potential. But the music, I think, is what actually conveys some of the scenes better than the actual animation and scenes themselves do, which is a bit funny, but you know, some great music can go a long way, but in this case, it just isn't enough. Now, with all like the extra little scenes and rearrangements that they were making, I was actually shocked that they didn't include that extra chapter that later editions of Uzumaki put in. It was about galaxies. This chapter, some people aren't really a fan of, but I kind of like it. It's pretty much where they discover a galaxy. It's in the shape of a spiral, and a astrologist became so obsessed. You know, he was starting to claim it as his own. Like, he's the one that saw it, and he wanted to kill the people that didn't want to give up. You know, didn't want to relinquish them claiming they saw it, so that, you know, he wanted to kill those people. I don't know why not adapt this. It wasn't that long of a chapter. I think it was like 30 pages. It wouldn't have taken too much to just squeeze that in between one of the episodes. I think it would have fit rather nicely into, you know, the anime. It would have helped the anime with, you know, extra scenes that they had cut out. It would have just made it a fuller experience, but oh well. Like I stated before, I made a review of this manga 7 years ago, and it profoundly touched me. Like, it means a lot to me, as it was one of my first anime manga horrors I had experienced, and I just thought it was masterful. However badly I, you know, expressed that in that video back then. Again, please don't watch it. But yeah, it's just really sad that one of my most favorite manga gets butchered in such a way that after years and years of what was one of my most hyped up anime ever, just done so dirty like this. It's just a complete tragedy. And seeing all the online ridicule, jokes, memes that are just made about the anime itself, people just prematurely judging it without really reading the manga or anything, it's just something I'm gonna have to face. It's just face the facts. This is just the timeline we live in now, and it's just how it goes. But to be honest, at the same time, it isn't even that shocking, because Junji Ito adaptations, just for some reason, are cursed themselves. The irony in that, he often writes stories of horror pertaining to curses, and his adaptations, mostly anime adaptations, just end up very mediocre or very poor. They just don't capture the magic and the grotesque nature of his style. And it's unfortunate. It again reminds me of Berserk. It's just, I wish it could have been, I wish it could have been a good adaptation, but I'm not shocked at all by it. Well, that was my review of Uzumaki. I'm just gonna be giving it a 3. I think it's awful. It just does so much wrong. Again, the first episode was great, but even then I found a lot of problems with it. It wasn't even that good of an adaptation. It was beautifully done, like animation and art style was, but as an adaptation, it was not that good. And the rest, episode 2, 3, and 4, speaks for itself.
I fell for hours!
Yeah, not much else I can say, except please just avoid the anime adaptation. And even if you do want to watch it, go ahead and at least do it out of respect for the people that worked on it. That's why I watched it. I at least wanted to do it for them and as a fan. But I implore you to instead just read the manga. It's 3 volumes, 20 chapters. You won't regret it. It's such a great read, and I'm sure it won't disappoint like the anime adaptation did. Well, if you enjoyed this first anime review of mine, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It would help me out a lot. And I don't know, I wonder if I'll do some other anime reviews, if you want to give me some suggestions. Hopefully it won't be as negative as this one was, but who knows. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.